Hello, my name's Gina Davies, and the workshop you're about to see was filmed in front of a live audience. Most parents of young children with autism know how important toilet training is and what a big step forward this is in a child's development. But at the same time, it can seem impossible. How do you go about toilet training a child who doesn't communicate very well, who doesn't seem to understand what's happening with their bodies, and perhaps who doesn't seem to show any motivation to use the toilet? This workshop is full of tried and tested techniques and strategies and ideas for getting your child successfully toilet trained. It's very much about the practical and doable things you can start to do now to help your child achieve this fantastic skill that will really set them up well for the next step in their lives as independent young people. I hope you find the workshop useful. Why don't you let me know how you get on? Email me at contact@ginadavies.co.uk. Thank you. Toilets. Let's flush some. What we're going to talk about in this workshop is getting your child out of nappies and using the toilet successfully, and it is a really important life skill. It is what small children learn, usually preschool, and it takes time and effort, but it's a big step forward in terms of life skills. So we're going to think how to do this when your child is autistic. And yes, it is possible, but we're going to tackle it in slightly different ways to those you might use if you were toilet training a typically developing child. So we're thinking about wee and poo and how do we get it in the toilet and how do we achieve this skill with our child. But we do need to ask, as a family, are you ready to do this? There is quite a lot of pressure for some families to get this done. People have quite high expectations. Oh, well, I had my child toilet trained by the time they were 2, and my child never had an accident. And if your child is about to start nursery school or playgroup, it might be that they have to be in pants and toilet trained before they're allowed to start. Or if they're starting school, certainly mainstream schools expect children to be toilet trained. So it is something we need to think about, and it's definitely worth us having a go at and getting sorted out for the child. So we're going to be thinking, is now the right time for you as a family? You definitely need to have a period of time when you're going to be settled into a routine. For the first few weeks, you don't want to do it if you're about to go on holiday. You don't want to do it if you're about to go and stay the weekend with a friend, or if you're going camping, or if you're going to spend a long time travelling in the car. What you want to do is to be sorted out with your basic daily routine family life. That's a good time to do it. And you will need to get organised to do this, because you're going to have a period of time where you are quite consistent about when you take your child to the toilet. So it needs to be a couple of weeks where you can give time and effort. So make sure you don't start until you are really ready and that you are up for it and that you've got the energy for it, and you will need a sense of humour, because there will be some accidents and there will be some misunderstandings. But the thing that really messes up toilet training the fastest is anxiety, fretting and worrying, and when a child begins to get anxious. So we need a sense of humour, we need the time, and we need the effort available, and a sort of a standard routine to the family day for the first few weeks. So if as a family you think this is a good time and this is the right time for you, then we need to think about the child. Is the child showing any interest in using the toilet? Are they showing any awareness of perhaps being wet or dirty? Do they show any kind of discomfort? If their nappy is very wet, do they ask it for it to be changed? Are they interested? Are they sort of pausing before they wet their nappy? Are there any kind of signals that your child is showing some awareness that they are emptying their bladder and opening their bowels? Okay, and in order for a child to move easily into a toilet training program, they need to be able to hold wee in their bladder for 1.5 to 2 hours. When a child is very young, very immature, they just release urine very frequently across the day. but gradually the bladder gets to the point where it can hold wee in it, and the sphincter stays shut, and then it is emptied completely periodically as opposed to leaking or weeing frequently. Okay? And for a child to successfully start a toilet training program, nice and simply, they need to be able to stay dry for an hour and a half or 2 hours. And that's a really good indication that you're ready for the go. And one of the things you can do to check whether your child can do that is you take their nappy and you simply slip a piece of kitchen towel into the nappy, and then you put the nappy on, and then every half an hour or 20 minutes just pull the leg of the nappy down as your child is wearing it and just see whether the kitchen towel is dry or wet. And then you begin to get an idea of whether they are actually able to hold urine. And the reason you need the kitchen towel is because it's quite difficult to spot whether a child has had a wee, because these nowadays nappies are so incredibly good at absorbing the moisture. So slip a bit of kitchen towel in, check it every 20 minutes to half an hour, and see whether they are actually managing to retain urine in their bladder. Fantastic. Okay, so when is a good time to start? And that does vary between different cultures. So very often we are leaving it till later because disposable nappies are easier, washing machines are more effective, and also our lives are often very busy. We've got a lot of things that we want to do, and toilet training does take time and effort. But it's also that if you are raising a child with autism, there are other things which might seem more important, perhaps attending the multiple appointments, getting speech therapy, getting your child into school, getting the assessments done. And so your day is already filled with things, and toilet training just doesn't seem to make it to the top of the list. But it can be done, and it is much more easily achieved if it's done preschool. It's not that it's impossible to do it later, but if we do it preschool, the quantities are smaller, there's less wee, there's less poo, the child is more easily helped physically with these things, and there's less of a habit formed around wearing a nappy. If you've been wearing a nappy until you're 8, it's a much more significant thing to suddenly change to pants. Okay, so we need to be thinking, when are we going to do this? Definitely we want to try preschool if we can. It can be difficult if your child is not speaking, but there are ways round that. So the fact that your child can't talk doesn't mean you can't toilet train, we just need to do it slightly differently. And even if your child can talk, actually we're going to do it differently because we need to help the child understand the sensations and what's expected. So typically we would be trying between the ages of 3 and 4. It's obviously easier in the summer months because there's less clothing to be dealt with, but it can be done at any time of the year, whenever suits you. So in order to be ready, your child must be able to sit and be stable, stand and be stable, and be dry and clean for an hour and a half or 2 hours in sections across the day. Okay? If they can do those, they're possibly ready, and providing you are, we could get on with it. So we're going to think in terms of a plan. Okay, we've got the toilet and getting there and getting the wee and poo in the toilet. That's the main thing, that's the principal thing. And we're just going to pick off how we can organise ourselves to get this done. So we're going to think about the facts, how are we going to know what this is about, how is the child going to know what this is about, how we're going to communicate, we're going to get the essential ingredients of a toilet training programme worked out, we're going to work out exactly what we're going to do, what clothes we're going to wear, the environment, and then we might also be thinking about play, how we can introduce a playful element into understanding how toilets work to minimise stress, and then some problem solving for those things which sometimes cause a little hiccup in the toilet training programme. So we're thinking centrally, we've got that toilet, that's where we're heading for, that's what we're going for, and then we're just going to put together a plan together to see how we can make this work for you. The essential ingredients are really around teamwork. This is a team effort. The child is a part of the team, maybe unknowingly, and they haven't signed up for this consciously, but they are a part of the team. But everybody involved with the child needs to be on plan. So it's a team effort. Everybody is going to stick together on this. We're not going to have one person who thinks they can do it differently and it'll work magically. It's got to be a plan that works for everybody in the family and anybody else who has care of your child for periods of the day. Okay, so it's a teamwork and everyone needs to know the rules. This is how we're going to do it. It may be that you did it differently with another child, but this is the plan for my son or daughter and this is how we're going to do it. Okay. And one of the rules that the team needs to obey without any question is you're not going to discuss accidents. We're not going to tell stories about the accidents the child has had in front of the child. It may be that the child is non-verbal and doesn't understand very much speech, but they pick up the vibes of adults talking about accidents. And we don't want the child to become anxious. Because if the child becomes anxious or overly interested in the accidents, we're going down the wrong track. What we want is going to the toilet is something that's normal, it's easy and it's stress-free. So no discussions of accidents. Not when you're handing your child over to the next person in your team, perhaps you're taking them to school. It's not, he's already had 4 accidents this morning, I hope he's all right for you. Right? It's not that, it's we've been trying hard this morning, we're remembering, need to go to the toilet every half an hour, or whatever it is that you've got your plan. You stay positive and just keep each other reminded, and you hand over the damp pants ready to be washed, okay? But we don't need to count them, we don't need any elaboration of how the accident happened. Accidents will happen. You've got to accept that. You're not going to avoid all accidents. There will be a mess occasionally, but these things can be dealt with. It's really important that it doesn't become the focus. And we are going to broadcast successes. So the first time your child wears pants, you're going to tell everybody how exciting this is. Oh, Mary's wearing pants today. And you want the person to go, oh, Mary, pants, fantastic. Not, oh, I should think so, about time. You know, you're nearly 5, you need to be in pants for school. Not that, but the pants are fascinating. Pants are brilliant. Wearing pants is a great success. Daddy wears pants, Mummy wears pants, Granny wears pants, Grandpa wears pants, my teacher wears pants. You know, pants are the thing. They are the highly desirable thing, because for some children that can be troubling, because actually from the child's experience of life, nappies are the thing. Okay, and now we want to do it differently, and it does feel different. But we're going to broadcast success. The first time a child has a wee in the toilet, you're going to tell everybody. When they have a poo, you're going to tell everybody. It's going to be fantastic. We are going to celebrate this. So when I was running the Early Years Intervention Centre, if we had a child who had their first success in the toilet, we would open the door into the hall where the parents were waiting to collect their child at the end of the session, and we'd go, today, unbelievable, absolutely amazing, Claire had a wee in the toilet, and we'd expect all the parents to cheer and roar and to be absolutely delighted, and this was the norm. We just did it for all the children. For children who were intimidated by the noise, we would celebrate more quietly, but it was a powerful thing and we were all delighted. We need to be pleased because it's an achievement and it's a life skill. And we're definitely the team is going to stick together. Okay, we are going to stay on plan, we're going to stick together, and if it gets to the point perhaps where I've changed 8 pairs of wet pants in a row and that I'm beginning to lose my patience, then somebody else in the team will step in and change the next pair without complaint, and I will understand that that's somebody offering me some practical support, and I'm going to be okay about that, and I'm not going to worry that if I was a better mother I could have done 20 pairs of pants without losing my temper. We're just going to stick together as a team and just get on with it. And we're going to be realistic. There will be accidents. It's going to take time. Miraculously, some children do toilet train incredibly quickly, but not all. Most children need help over a period of time to learn this skill. And sometimes a child might be doing brilliantly, and then suddenly something makes them really laugh and they have an accident. It's very easy to feel disappointed, but be realistic. The child is learning the control and the new behaviours, okay? So there will be some accidents, and you need a sense of humour with this one, because there will be things which you need to laugh about or they'll drive you bonkers, okay? So we need a sense of humour too. So that's the kind of essential teamwork ingredients. stick together as a team. And then we need to establish the facts, okay? What are you going to call the various things? Bottom is a good word, okay? You don't want to get into any elaborate or special family words, okay? We and poo in the UK works really well, right? But there are dozens of different words for we. There is number one, there's ringing a fairy's bell, which is one I heard in another family, all sorts of different labels for urine, okay? Now urine is not a word that works, you know, I need to release urine is not a request that will be easily understood from a preschool child. It is factually correct, but what is the normal label for this that will work preschool and in primary school, and then maybe you'll mature it into a different label for secondary, but it needs to be the label for something that is going to be easily understood anywhere, right? And it's really important. Don't go for little secret family special words and names. Stick to the vocabulary, okay? It's we, it's poo, it's a bottom, it's a toilet, it's a toilet seat, it's toilet paper, okay? It's wiping, it's what all that you need to just work out the vocabulary. So you sit down as a family and you work out the vocabulary, and then the child needs to see the real things identified. So if you're toilet training a boy, you need daddy to take the child to the toilet and show the child how it works. And as the wee goes into the toilet, you tell the child, that is wee, that's a poo. You know, it's no good being coy about it. You've actually got to label the things as they're happening so that the child gets the idea. So identifying the real thing. So a trusted adult, so if you're training a boy, you want daddy, much loved and trusted other adults, brothers. This child is going to watch and see the things labelled. And the other thing is to get the environment sorted out. You need easy and quick access to your toilet. So in one household where we were toilet training, where there were 3 young children, one of whom with autism, we went into the toilet and there's a whole stack of different potties, and then there are cleaning materials, and then there are towels, and then there's a big basket full of toilet rolls, and then there's a couple of books and a couple of cars and a newspaper. Okay, everybody's needs are served in this toilet area, but when you go in, it's difficult to get at the toilet. And which potty are you going to choose? And oh crikey, the whole thing gets so complicated. And the reason for the stack of different potties was because they were hoping one of them would be more appealing to the child and perhaps might help persuade the child to use it. Okay, you decide, potty or toilet. Clear the toilet so that when you get in there, there's really only one thing to do when you're in there, and that it's obvious visually. Remember, autistic children are very visual. You don't want them to get in there and then forget what they're in there for because they're distracted. Or if you need to get in there quickly in order to catch a wee before the child has an accident, you don't want to fall over your cleaning materials, trip over the books, and then knock the pile of potties over. So have a big clear up. Get everything out that you don't need. Okay? And there will be accidents, as we said. So one way you can prepare for that is to get yourself a clear-up kit. And if you've got anybody in your family who's desperately keen to help you, perhaps a granny who's very interested in helping you get this skill for your child, you could give them this as a job. Okay, you want some little baskets, and you're going to put the basics that you need to clear up an accident in the basket. So in this basket we've got some nappy sacks, okay, so that you can just put the knickers in a nappy sack and the wet trousers, so you can get into the machine easily. We've got some wipes, so you can wipe the child and the carpet or the floor. We've got some antibacterial spray, which you can just give everything a bit of a squirt over so that you get rid of the smell quickly. If you're very sensitive yourself, or any other member of your family is very sensitive about mess and smells and touching things, you might want to put some plastic gloves in your clear-up basket. And then there's a little bit of air freshener if that appeals to you, or a bit of hand sanitizer. But what you're after is that the clear-up kit is available in each of the rooms that your child is in, so that if there's an accident, you get it dealt with quickly, efficiently, it's done. Not that, oh no, there's a poo on the carpet in the sitting room, keep the dog in the kitchen, don't let dad in, don't let anybody walk across, hold on a minute, who's got the toilet paper, get me a rubbish sack. You want it to be totally, get the basket, get it cleared up, get it done, that's it. All right, so the clean-up kits are really important, and get them where you need them. If you've got a carpet that you really care about, or a carpet in your bathroom or toilet area, and you really mind about that and it doesn't wash easily, then either take it out whilst you're toilet training your child, or cover it. Either buy a very cheap rug you can put on the top, or put a shower curtain down over the top, so that you don't have to worry. Because if the first time you see the child wetting themselves is, oh no, and you grab the child and pick them up because you don't want it to go on the carpet, you are delivering immediate anxiety and fretting and worrying and, oh no, stop it. And that is really not going to be helpful. So just think in advance. What have I got on the floor that I really care about, I don't want to get wet? Remove it, or cover it, and then you can relax and get on with it. We're thinking about preparing the environment, and definitely once you are in a toilet training programme, many of us do spend quite a long time travelling in the car, and we don't actually want our car seats wet or messy, and so the temptation is when you go in the cars to put the child back in a nappy. But unfortunately that gives the child very different sensory experiences, and a child who goes back into a nappy, their body is used to that sensation, they are used to releasing wee and poo into a nappy, and just the sensation of putting the nappy on might mean that is when they go. So we don't want that, but what you can do very easily to protect car seats is you get a rubbish sack like this, and you open it up, and then you put onto the rubbish sack a towel, nice and absorbent, and then you put that on the child's car seat, and you sit the child on top. Okay, now if they have an accident, it will be absorbed by the towel. Okay, and before you get your child out of the car, you whip their knickers and trousers off, and you put them in clean ones, you put them on top of the towel, and you simply close the sack, tie it up, take it home, and put the whole lot through the washing machine. But the child is still achieving the same learning opportunity, which is I retain urine in my bladder when I'm in the car because I wee in the toilet or in the potty, whichever one it is you. So that's a very easy and quick solution. Okay, so we're thinking about getting ready. You need to decide, are you going to use the toilet or a potty? That's for you to decide. I've always tended, and certainly at the nursery, we went straight for the toilet. And we ask people, why are you worried about using the toilet? And they say things like, well, we're frightened that the child will fall in. I haven't actually heard of any reported deaths or injuries from children falling into the toilet. But what you do is right from the beginning is your script is trousers down, pants down, sit on the toilet, hold on. So right from the beginning, you teach your child to hold on. You're going to wash their hands. So it's not a problem. But you need your child to be sitting on the toilet, feeling secure, and you simply put the holding on nice and quickly at the beginning. Or if you go for a potty, that's not so much of a problem. But if you use a potty first, you are then going to have to train the child to use the toilet afterwards. That's your decision, and you must decide what you want to do. Then we need to think about the clothing. Children are usually in nappies, like this one, with tabs. Okay, so we put the nappy on. And the market would have us believe that the next step is these things, these pull-ups, okay, which are sold to us as being very similar to pants. So the child gets used to the fact that the nappy is pulled up and down their legs, as opposed to undone with tabs. But from an autistic point of view, the inside of both of these feels the same. At the moment, the child has learnt to release wee and poo into something that feels like this. So if you swap to these, you're not actually moving towards pants because this feels exactly the same. So the child will continue to use the pull-up as a nappy. So I think really these are not terribly helpful. Okay. So I would go straight from a nappy to pants. Okay, so we have choices in pants, particularly for little boys. For little girls, we definitely want just straightforward knickers. For boys, these are kind of the fashion at the moment. These boxer shorts, which are very smart. Okay, you're going to need to buy lots of them, but actually, if I'm toilet training a child, we would not use boxer shorts because a little boy can wee in a pair of boxer shorts, and the wee will go straight down their leg, and they might look down and see that they're now standing in a puddle or that they've got a wet shoe without realising that it was anything to do with what happened around their bottom area, because there's no feedback here. The pants don't get wet, the urine just trickles down their legs. So these are not helpful in terms of giving the child an understanding of where all the action is happening and what the sensations are. You might want to use these once your child is toilet trained, but during toilet training, really what you need is something like a pair like this, a snug fit, so that if the child is wet, they will get the sensation in the right area for it all to be happening. Okay, so the feedback is much better with these. When you buy your socks and pants, you want to buy lots of them. Okay, so you buy pants by the yard. Here we've got 10 pairs for £2.50, so you can get them very cheaply. You want lots. Don't buy special pants, not pants with Thomas the Tank Engine on the front. None of these things are really necessary, but you just, at this stage, you just need lots of pants, and you need lots of socks, because if you have an accident, usually it goes down your legs and your socks get wet as well. And what we want is for the child to be comfortable and dry as quickly as possible. So you need lots of pants, lots of socks, and if it's a little boy, lots of pairs of trousers, and if it's a little girl, lots of little skirts. But we need it to be all easy access clothing, all right? We don't want things with a big belt and then a button and then a zip, because if the child is getting to the toilet for the first time and can't get out of their clothes quickly enough, they will have an accident. That's just a disappointment. Really, you want things on an elasticated waist for the first few weeks, so that it's very easy for the child to get their trousers down or to lift their skirts. So we're just going to make it easy. Think in terms of how easy can I make it for my child to develop independence here. So easy access clothes. If your child, as a lot of small children do, once they're out of a nappy, spend a lot of time with their hands inside their pants fiddling, which is, it's not unusual, then for those children, if they become a little bit too engaged with that, or perhaps if they smear, which is not an uncommon problem, though people don't talk about it very much. So if your child slips their hand down the back of their pants, if they're dirty, and then plays with or smears the feces simply because they don't know that it's not done, then you might put those children in high arm dungarees, okay? Because you just need to make it difficult to get at, the bottom and the poo, in order to help the child limit that kind of behaviour. So you put them in high arm dungarees. Yes, you will have to be really on the ball to undo the dungarees to help the child get to the toilet, but it just means the child can't make mistakes if that's something that's a problem for you and your child. And now we need to think about communication. What we tend to do is to ask the children, do you need a wee? Do you need the toilet? Okay. And we want the child to reply. But for children with autism, you've just complicated the process, because we know in autism communication is a difficulty in its own right. And what we're trying to learn here is toilet training. We're not having a lesson in speech and language therapy or in communication. So we're not going to ask the child, do you need the toilet? What we're going to do is we're going to work out a script that makes it easier for the child to successfully toilet training, regardless of the level of their language development. So we're not going to ask the child, we're going to tell them. We're going to tell them it's time for the toilet. Okay? We're going to tell them, and we're going to show them a picture at the same time. So I would have lots of photographs of the toilet. Okay, don't just make one, get lots, or take a photograph on your mobile phone. Parents have their mobile phones with them all the time. And when it's time to go to the toilet, I would simply show the child the picture and say, it's time for the toilet. I'm not going to say, do you need a wee? Do you need a poo? Do you think you'd be more comfortable? It's been a little while, what do you think? Shall we go? Should we go and try and have a wee? Okay, not this huge deluge of language, not masses and masses of words, simply, it's time for the toilet. Okay, and you show the child the picture at the same time. And you are going to do that every single time you take your child to the toilet. Right? If your child is non-verbal and has no speech, and they experience you using a picture every time they see the picture, they end up in the toilet area sitting on the toilet, you are much more likely to get the child picking up the picture one day and showing it to you as a means of request, as a means of asking, I need the toilet. If you don't do it yourself, the child is not learning from you how the pictures work. But it is really important. And there are lots of books that you can use to give the child the idea about pants being absolutely fantastic, perhaps about potties, about what toilets look like. Okay, there are masses of books, what poos look like. Okay, we can use those to help build the child's understanding, and that's what we're after. Okay, we want to keep it simple and to play down the complications that communication put into the situation. You're going to take the child to the toilet at regular intervals. Okay, so we don't want to overdo it because we don't want to feel that we spend our entire life in the toilet, but we are going to take them at regular intervals. So they wake up, you take off the night nappy, you sit them on the toilet. Okay, after breakfast, before they go to school, middle morning, lunchtime, after lunch, middle afternoon, around bath time and bedtime, and then into a nappy for night. Okay? You work out how often, but those sort of timings would work very well with a school day, because you have a wee before you start school, you're having a wee when you would get your mid-morning break, you'd be having a wee at lunchtime, you'd be having a wee mid-afternoon in the mid-afternoon break, and then you'd be having a wee when you get home. And those things, if a child learns to empty their bladder and their bowels at regular times, it will work with the routine that their day is going to follow in other placements. You have really cracked a good skill for them. Because if they can't ask, but they go at regular intervals, then that will fit with what other people need for the way that their days run. We're going to label events, as we said before, and we're going to have a script. It's time for the toilet, and when you get there, trousers down, pants down, sit down, hold on, have a wee, have a poo, wipe, pants up, trousers up, flush, wash your hands, dry your hands. It's very, very simple script. Not masses of chit-chat or elaboration, keep the script very simple. And if they're doing the right thing, you need to praise them immediately. Unfortunately, what doesn't work very well, particularly when you're training preschoolers, is this kind of delayed reward system. If you keep your pants dry for 4 days in a row, we'll go and have a hamburger and chips on Friday. The child is not thinking like that, and it's not a deliberate act of having an accident, it's just the forgetting and they haven't learned. But these delayed rewards don't work very effectively. It's got to be immediate, and we're going to play down any accidents. Just state the facts. Oh, you're wet. We need to change you. All right. Oh, it's a wee on the floor. We need to change you. Oh, your trousers are dirty. We need to change you. That's it. Not a great elaborate, you mustn't do that, try and remember for mummy, blah, blah, blah. Simply this very simple script. We do need to play, particularly for children who begin to do the wrong thing with wee and poo and become a little bit too interested in it, and you want to reach into the toilet to play with the water, perhaps get really excited by pulling all the paper off the toilet paper roll and watching the roll going round and round and strips of paper. The children clearly need to play, but you're going to put that into a play time. Okay? Okay, so we would, if we had children who were very nervous about the toilet, we would try and defuse the whole idea by perhaps saying, this is wonderful toilet here, you know, this is quite funny, the children like that, I like that, I think that's great fun. And it's just, you know, when we want to play with the toilet, we play with the play toilet, not with the real toilet. Okay, so you want to play, we'll play with this toilet, but we won't play with the toilet in the bathroom. Or there's this one here where this baby wheezes each time you squeeze him, you know, which is, if we want to say, yeah, but look, the little boy is going to wee in the toilet, and you can show them how to do it with a puppet. If the children are getting a bit too interested in poo and want to play with poo, then you can offer an alternative. Oh, you want to play? Okay, don't play with the poo, but you can kind of play with this Play-Doh type thing, or this slightly stickier putty, which gives the child the same sensation as faeces, but is more appropriate and more acceptable. The child is simply making a mistake. They are playing, they don't realise that in our society we don't play with poo, but we can play with something like poo if we want that sensation. So it's don't play with poo, play with dough or something else that feels like it. In terms of what to do, the first stage in toilet training is to demonstrate. So you want the child to see how weeing and pooing works on the toilet, and that's get your family members involved. We are all demonstrating like crazy. Okay, so demonstrate, let the child see how the whole process works. It's no good hoping they'll get the idea. They've actually got to see how it works, and just don't going to do that calmly. And the other thing that you're going to do immediately is only change your child in the bathroom or toilet area. Because disposable nappies are so easy, is that you can change the child lying down almost anywhere. And that makes us a little bit lazy, so we change the child on the kitchen floor, on the sitting room floor, or perhaps in the back of the car. So the child is not making the association that wee and poo belongs in the toilet. So from now on, you're only going to change your child near the toilet. Okay, this is where it happens. Yes, it's more work. Yes, it means perhaps going upstairs and all the rest of it, but it's important because it's a part of building the child's understanding that all this stuff happens with the toilet. Okay, so we're building that connection. You're going to put your child on the toilet first thing in the morning, and you're then going to take them regularly across the day. Simply show them the picture, it's time for the toilet, and then take them. It's not a question, it's not a debate, it's not a wrestling match, it's just a simple thing that happens and you're going to do calmly and to get going. You're going to commit to a toilet training programme being really thorough, very consistent, for a minimum of 3 weeks. Okay? If at the end of 3 weeks you've got nowhere and you think, I can't stand it anymore, the whole house smells like a urinal and it's driving me bonkers, it's really not working, not getting anywhere, you say, we had a really good try. At the moment, we have decided it's not the right time and we are going to wear nappies. And that's what you're going to do. You're just going to decide to give it a rest, and you will try again later. It's not a disaster. Some children require a couple of goes. You know, you need everything in their development to be moving in the right direction with a following wind and everybody feeling cheerful. You know, you've given it a good try, it hasn't worked, okay, let's leave it for a couple of months and then we'll try again. The vast majority of children with autism toilet train. We just need to be persistent, we need to be optimistic, and we need to make sure that we've got a really good plan. Okay, and that you really are doing it. Not that you did it for a couple of hours this morning and then you put them in a nappy because you had friends and their children round and you knew you wouldn't be able to remember. That's not a consistent toilet training programme. Okay? It will take about 6 months for children to become completely reliable. But within 3 weeks, you should be getting more wheeze and poos in the toilet than otherwise. And remember, children toilet train for wee before a poo. And that does seem a bit surprising because you kind of think the poo is the bigger event and more easily spotted because the child has got buckled lips and is bending over. But they toilet train for wee first and then poo. And if your child won't poo in the toilet and perhaps has gone for a couple of days, you look at the child and when you think they need a poo, if they won't go in the toilet, put the child in a nappy in the bathroom, let them open their bowels, put it in the toilet, flush it away, tell the child good boy, and remember that gradually you can move towards them doing it in the toilet, but you want to avoid your child becoming constipated because that causes other problems. So if they're very uptight about having a poo, and some children find it very hard to do that, you're going to put them in a nappy for a poo, and as soon as they've had it, take it off. And you're just going to go for it. And there's absolutely no reason why this shouldn't work. But you've got to be consistent and really commit yourself to it. There are some kind of sensitivities and worries that children with autism sometimes have around toilet training, which is slightly more obvious in autism. Typical worries are things around the flush, the noise of the flush, dislike of particular smells, the mess, hand dryers that go off unexpectedly can give children who've got auditory sensory issues, can give them a bit of a fright and then they get anxious and upset. But we need to be working through those, okay? The most important thing about the flush is to let the child watch it, okay? If they don't want to do the flushing themselves and they don't like the noise, you say fingers in your ears, okay? So that you put your fingers in your ears, the child put their finger in their ears, and then you flush the toilet and you watch the water go away, and then gradually you lose the fingers in the ears. Desensitisation. There is no reason to be frightened of the toilet. If your child is anxious about the toilet, you need to be very careful that you're not also anxious about it yourself, that you're not worried about people setting off hand dryers, turning on the taps unexpectedly. You need to gradually desensitise to that. So you need to stay calm and don't make a big thing about worries. You know, we know the child, you can say, I know you find it hard, but flushing is a part of life. Everybody has a poo, everybody has a flush. It's okay, you don't like it, but it's doable. And you plod on with that kind of attitude. Sometimes children don't like the smell of the toilet cleaners, and some of them do smell very powerfully, so it could be that this is the time to remove those for the moment. But keep the rules really simple around flushing, toilet paper and hand washing. We don't want to get into, I need to cover my entire hand in the toilet paper so that I don't risk getting my fingers wet or covered in poo and that everything has to be wrapped and, terribly exotic. This is not how it works. We used to have a 3-sheet room at the little group, the nursery that I ran. It was 3 sheets and that was enough. And of course you have a thorough hand washing afterwards. So you keep it really simple. In terms of troubleshooting, as we've said, if it's not working after 3 weeks, you stop. And when you're ready, you restart. Fact of life. Don't worry about it. Just going to get on with it. Urine infections, if your child gets a urine infection, they will lose control. Okay, so you might be doing really well and then suddenly you're having multiple accidents. The first thing to think about is, has the child got a urine infection? You'll need to deal with that first and then reset your toilet training. If a child gets constipated, that does cause extra problems, so try and keep things relaxed. A lot of children do have chronic constipation on the autism spectrum, and that's a different issue. So you need to keep things calm, keep things quiet, keep things as relaxed as possible, and allow a nappy to be used if that helps. Gradually move towards having poo in the toilet. Some children get very worried about not having a nappy. If you're used to wearing one of these, they're usually quite a snug fit and give you, a nice piece of elastic around your waist and you kind of feel braced and all together. And then you're put into a pair of these and all of a sudden everything seems to be flapping in the breeze and there's a lot more space and air and it's a very different sensation. So we need to be careful that we give the child a chance to get used to these. The other thing is that children in nappies get very cavalier about sitting down. Suddenly they just plop to the floor because they've got padding. When you're wearing pants, you don't get the padding, so you can get a few shocks from that. So you need to be reassuring. For children that are really anxious, can't seem to move on from it at all, you can wear pants and then put a nappy over the top. But you want to avoid doing that if you can. But if a child needs to do it in small stages because they've got very rigid thinking, get highly anxious, then that's one way of doing it. You need to watch for the kind of individual signs of needing to go. Most children will pause momentarily in what they're doing when they release. Okay? And that sign becomes an indication to you that that would be a good opportunity to say, time for a wee. So you do need to watch for the individual signs. And some children are very private about opening their bladder or opening their bowels, and these are the children who go and stand behind the curtain or always take themselves to their bedroom or sit behind the sofa, okay? And that's important that you know that, because that means if you sit them on the toilet and then you squat down in front of them, you go on, have a wee, you are right up there and personal and in their face. And if your child is a child who needs privacy, they are never going to be able to open the various muscle groups to release wee or poo. So if your child is one that needs privacy, you're going to get them onto the toilet and then you are going to turn your back so that your child can wee and poo in privacy, and if necessary you might have to leave the room. Improving aim. Some children seem to think that sitting down is all they've got to do. In fact, if you're a little boy, you need to push your willy between your legs and make sure that it all goes downwards, because otherwise you could be sitting down but it'll all fire all over the room, so you just need to check that. And little boys do need to be taught how to wee standing up. You might want to start with everything sitting down and then gradually going to stand up, hold your willy, point it, have a wee, shake it, pants up, trousers up, okay? And you've got to be totally matter-of-fact about it. But with little boys, you must practice using urinals, because in schools and public spaces, it is urinals that little boys are expected to use. So you will need to add that into the toilet training. Dealing with urgency, every now and again you will be somewhere where there is no toilet and it is clear that the child needs a wee. Only in those circumstances can you allow the kind of emergency rules, the peeing behind a tree or in the bushes or having to stop the car and to have a wee. You don't want to make those entertaining, fun or normal practice. Because they can be a lot easier for children to do than actually taking themselves off to find a toilet. But that's what we're encouraging, is to wee and poo in the toilet. We don't want to give them the idea that weeing behind a tree is also fine and that weeing in the garden is no problem. We certainly used to have the problem with our children who were toilet training, who get to the point where they knew they needed a wee and they would drop their trousers and their pants and wee wherever they were without quite making the connection to the toilet, and we would put their pants and their trousers up even though the child was midstream, take them to the toilet and show them that that's where it was. We weren't cross with them, it's simply, oh, you need the toilet, pants up, trousers up in the toilet area, because you can't let children develop the habit of exposing themselves potentially in public places. That's not going to help. So practice with other toilets. Once you've got it done with your toilet, we need to try Granny's toilet, we need to try a friend's house toilet, we need to try the toilets in the shops and toilets in other places that you visit regularly. So it just gradually gets going. And the other thing that sometimes children get quite caught up in is holding on. So they'll hold on and hold on and hold on and they don't release urine, and you can see they need to go, and they've had quite a lot to drink during the day and you can see they need to go, and actually the child is waiting for the sensation they associate with a nappy. All right? And each time you put them on the toilet it doesn't feel the same as what they're used to, so they don't release. So the old tricks quite often work, where you turn the taps on, so the sound of running water, or making the child laugh. If you can give the child the giggles while they're sitting on the toilet, it's very hard to hold on once you're laughing. If a child has held on all day and you can see that it's now becoming painful and uncomfortable, but when you put them on the toilet they really can't go, you put them in a nappy, let them release. As soon as they've finished, take it off. Tomorrow's a new day, you're going to try again. Okay? And it's just a question of keeping going. But you don't want children to hold on for long, long periods of time, because that increases the risk of a urine infection. So you're going to have a go, you're going to hang in there, you are going to laugh when things go wrong, you're going to expect accidents, and you are going to achieve this wonderful life skill for your child. So good luck, Get started, keep going for 3 weeks, see how far you get. Thank you very much.
My son can't talk. How can he ask to go to the toilet?
And actually, we're not going to get him to ask. In the initial stages in toilet training, until we've really got it established, you are going to take the need for asking out of the situation, because that just complicates it. So what we're going to do is to use a picture. Remember, when it is time to take your child to the toilet, you show them the picture and you say, it's time for the toilet. You're going to very consistently use a picture when you announce it's time to go. We're going to remove the need to request, because that is just an added complication. In the end, the child will learn to recognise the body signals and to be very fluent in using the toilet and be totally at ease and relaxed with that. But to begin with, you must use a picture.
Our son doesn't seem to understand to wee in the toilet, and when he wets himself, he just laughs. What should we do about this?
Okay, remember, we're not going to ask. We're going to announce it's time for a wee at the times that you have agreed for yourself on the toilet training programme. And if you think your child needs a wee and you can see them beginning to get a bit jiggly perhaps, then you're going to show them the picture and say, it's time for a wee. You're not asking. You're not saying, do you need a wee? That's not a part of what we're doing here. You announce it and you do it. And remember, the laughter is really a response to the interaction. It's a confusion, it's a mistake. Don't react, just stay on script, take your child to the toilet and change them as quickly as possible.
Our daughter is being toilet trained at the moment. Should we take her out of nappies at night and lift her up and take her to the toilet when we go to bed?
And this one I think is very much associated with perhaps how you were toilet trained to stay dry at night. I think it's very risky to lift an autistic child at night, because you risk waking them up and then you might be creating another problem altogether. So I would put them back into a nappy after their bath when you put them into bed. And when they get up in the morning, if they've been dry every night for a couple of weeks, that's perhaps the time to try taking the nappy off at night.
When we go out in the car, is it okay to put a nappy back on our daughter as we're toilet training at the moment?
And that one is tempting because you're thinking about your car seats, but the truth of the matter is that as soon as the child feels the sensation of the nappy against their skin, it will trigger the old habits, which are I wee in a nappy. So they're much more likely to wet into the nappy. And what you're trying to do is to change the child's understanding about where they should wee. They should wee in the toilet. So think about protecting your car seats, perhaps with a towel, and go for it. Try not to use a nappy.
When our son needs the toilet, he takes himself off and hides behind the curtains. But if we take him to the toilet to go, he just won't, even though we can see he needs to.
Yeah, it's very frustrating, but it's really to do with some children need privacy. And they can't process all the information that perhaps is coming at them all at once, when actually what they need to concentrate on is opening their bowels quietly without thinking about anything else. So if your child is the sort that seems to need to be private, when you see they need a poo, you show them the picture, it's time for the toilet, you help them get on the toilet, don't get very chatty, don't get right up close and start offering bribes or rewards or anything like that. You simply say it's time for a poo, and then turn away so the child doesn't have to look at you. Don't talk to them anymore. Stay very calm, stand in a relaxed manner, perhaps even outside the bathroom with the door shut if that's what helps your child, and you'll find that they can more easily have a poo peacefully.
Our son was doing really well with his toileting. He was getting it right pretty much every time. And then he had this terrible cold and he seemed to forget it all. Why can't he remember?
Oh, it's so frustrating, and it's not a deliberate act from your child's point of view. It's simply that when a child is unwell, the skills they have learnt most recently fall away for a bit because their concentration isn't as good and their body is not working in the ways that they would expect. And when you cough, very often a child will release a bit of wee anyway, just as a part of the coughing mechanism. So when your child is better, go back to the beginning of where you started with your toilet training programme, and don't worry, it won't take you nearly as long to get it back.
Our daughter has a lot of sensory problems and seems to be afraid of the toilet, even to sit on it. How do I approach toilet training?
I think basically we have to get used to the toilet. Remember, toilets don't hurt, they don't bite, they don't come up and attack you, and you need to be really careful that your worries about your daughter and your understanding around the sensory issues is not adding to the problem. We're going to put the seat down, we're going to put the lid down, we're going to ask your daughter to put things on the toilet. Could you just put this on the toilet while mummy runs the bath? All sorts of reasons for your child to be near the toilet, not having to sit on it, not having to use it, but so that she gradually becomes more relaxed about it. Perhaps she could, if you're getting ready to have a bath, she could sit on the toilet with the seat down, just sit there while mummy takes your shoes off or while mummy puts your pyjama bottoms on, just so that she gets used to being around it. And if you can persist with that gradually and allow her to see you, the trusted adult who means so much to her in her life, if she sees you using the toilet in very relaxed ways, the message will get across.